Before we start, I need you to do one thing. Look around your room. Make sure you're alone. Make sure every door is locked. Because tonight's stories aren't the kind you just listen to. These are the kind that follow you. Each one is true. Each one happened to someone who thought nothing could go wrong. But the moment you hit play, something changed. So sit back, dim the lights, and remember, you can still click away. For now. Story 1. I used to think late-night public transport wasn't that dangerous. Unsettling sometimes, sure, but never truly life-threatening. That changed a few months ago. It's the reason I still avoid trains after dark, the reason every echo on an empty platform makes my heart jump. I've told friends this story before, but every time I go through it again, I can feel my chest tightening like I'm right back there. At the time, I worked as a tutor for high school students in a suburb that people love to label as shady. I never really bought into that reputation. If anything, it felt normal, just another part of the city where you learn to keep your head down and stay aware. Usually, I finished around 9, but because our senior students were preparing for their exit exams, we often worked late. Some nights we didn't leave until right before midnight. That night, I clocked out at around 11:20, exhausted and cold, and headed straight for the station. It was drizzling lightly, the kind of rain that doesn't quite soak you, but still makes your clothes cling. The platform was quiet, too quiet, maybe. A few people stood around on the opposite side, but on mine, it was just me. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, and the announcements echoed through the empty air in a way that made everything feel unnervingly hollow. I was scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself from the uneasy silence, when I heard laughter. Not a single laugh, several, loud, sharp, and echoing from the left. I looked up and saw a group of tall, teenage boys heading onto the platform. Black hoodies, black pants, silver chains, the whole "don't mess with us" look. They carried themselves with the kind of careless confidence that only comes from knowing people are afraid of you. I immediately looked back down at my phone, pretending I hadn't noticed them, but their voices dropped to whispers. Whispers directed at me. I could feel their eyes locked onto me, even without looking. One of them nudged another, smiling this crooked, predatory smile. Some part of me wanted to move further away, but my body felt frozen in place. Thankfully, the train arrived. I stepped into the carriage closest to the driver, something I'd always been told was safer. I hoped they'd stay where they were, but no. All of them walked in behind me. The moment the doors closed, one of them pulled out a speaker and blasted violent rap, lyrics about murder, revenge, blood. The bass rattled the empty carriage as their voices joined in, shouting along like they owned the space. I tried not to look, but I couldn't help a quick glance. That was my mistake. One of them snapped his head toward me. "You got a problem? I'll bash your head in," he yelled, standing up. My heart slammed against my ribs. I froze. Then, like something out of a nightmare, he pulled out a knife. Not big, but unmistakably real. He waved it casually, like he wanted me to see it. Then he smirked, slow and deliberate, before turning back to his friends like threatening me was just part of the entertainment. I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe right. Every second felt stretched and sharp. I knew I had to do something, but walking to another carriage meant going directly past them. Getting off wasn't an option yet. The next stop was still minutes away. I texted my friend with shaking hands, explaining everything. He answered almost instantly. "Take a picture of them. If anything happens, I can report it." I didn't want to, but panic makes you do stupid things. I lifted my phone, snapped a quick photo, and forgot to turn off the shutter sound. That loud click sliced through the music. All of them turned toward me at once. "Oi, what the hell was that?" They stood up, shouting, moving closer. Their voices blended into this chaotic wall of anger I couldn't even understand. Then, just then, like divine timing, the train began to slow. I didn't wait. The moment the doors opened, I ran. I sprinted out, jumped the ticket gates, and tore through the station with them chasing behind me. I didn't look back. I just ran toward the sound of cars, lights, anything that meant safety. Eventually, I reached a busy street and collapsed on the pavement, lungs burning. When I turned to look, they were gone. My friend picked me up, and we went straight to the police. I showed them the picture. They took a report, but nothing ever came of it. They never found the group. Since that night, I've never stayed past 9 p.m. again. And people laugh when I say I'm paranoid, but the truth is simple. When you've looked fear in the eyes on an empty train, you learn that paranoia is just another word for survival.
Story 2. When I first moved to Denver, I thought life was finally working out for me. I'd left the East Coast for a tech job that promised clean air, mountain views, and a slower pace. And yeah, the mountains were beautiful, the breweries were everywhere, and the sunsets looked unreal. But after a few weeks, the excitement faded. I didn't know anyone. My days were Zoom calls, grocery store runs, and eating dinner alone while staring at the Rockies from my apartment window. I felt lonely. Eventually, I downloaded a dating app. Nothing serious, just trying to meet people. I swiped without thinking until I saw her. Emily. Cute brunette, freckles, warm smile. In her photos, she was always outdoors, hiking, drinking coffee, standing in front of snowy peaks. She looked like the definition of Colorado. She messaged me first, and after a few days of light flirting, she wrote, "Let me show you around sometime. There's this amazing spot in the foothills. Dinner first?" I agreed. Anything was better than another night alone. We met at a farm-to-table restaurant downtown. She showed up in a flannel shirt and jeans, hair pulled back, looking effortlessly relaxed. "Hey, stranger, hope you're hungry. These bison burgers are insane," she said, hugging me like we'd known each other for years. Dinner was easy, fun. She teased me about struggling with the altitude. I teased her about being too outdoorsy for me. We laughed a lot. She told me about her ex, her job, growing up in Boulder. Nothing felt off. After dinner, she insisted on splitting the bill. It made her seem even more normal. Outside, she pointed at an old Subaru covered in national park stickers. "Come on, Lookout Mountain. Stars like you've never seen." I hesitated for a second, but she seemed trustworthy, and honestly, I was craving connection. So I got in. We drove up winding mountain roads, the city lights shrinking behind us. Tall pines leaned over the road like dark walls. Emily hummed along to some indie folk playlist, tapping her fingers on the wheel. Then she asked, almost casually, "You ever think about how small we are out here? Like one wrong turn and poof, no one finds you." I laughed weakly. "You mean like, nature is powerful?" She didn't answer at first. Then she smiled. "Yeah, nature." We parked at a quiet pull-off. No other cars, no streetlights, just moonlight and the faint rustle of trees. She grabbed my hand. "Come on, there's a bench with the best view in the whole state." We walked down a short trail until we reached a clearing. The bench was old, facing a massive valley lit only by the moon. It was beautiful, romantic even. We sat with our shoulders touching, and for a moment, it felt perfect. Then she said it. "You know what I like about places like this? The isolation. No one around to hear you scream." I turned, expecting a joke, but her face was dead serious for one long second. Then she smiled. "Kidding, relax." But something in her eyes wasn't a joke. She leaned back, talking about jobs and dreams like nothing happened. Then out of nowhere she asked, "Do you listen to true crime? Like serial killers?" I shrugged. "Sometimes, on runs." Her eyes lit up. "I'm obsessed. Ted Bundy? He was from kind of around here. He was charming, normal. People never saw him coming. Then bam!" She snapped her fingers. "What do you think makes someone snap like that?" The air felt colder. "I guess trauma? Something in the brain?" She tilted her head. "Maybe, but what if it's just curiosity? Like, could I get away with it?" She held eye contact too long. "I used to think about that sometimes. The perfect crime, no traces." My stomach tightened. "You're joking, right?" Her laugh exploded out of her, loud, sharp, echoing off the trees. It didn't match her earlier laugh. This one was wild, unhinged. "Oh, come on! Everyone has those thoughts, don't you?" "Not really," I said, forcing a smile. She grabbed my arm suddenly, hard. "You're cute when you're nervous." I swallowed. "Emily, maybe we should head back." She ignored me. Instead, she pulled up her pant leg. "Imagine this," she whispered. "You carve your initials right here. Mark me forever." "What? No! That's insane!" But she was already reaching into her boot. A switchblade. She flicked it open with a click that echoed in the silent woods. "Here, I'll start." And before I could react, she pressed the blade to her own skin and slowly carved a shaky J, my initial. Blood welled up, shining in the moonlight as she bit her lip, smiling like she enjoyed it. "Your turn." I gagged at the metallic smell. "Emily, what the hell?" She laughed again. "Don't run. Come on, finish it." I bolted. I tore down the trail, branches slapping my face, breath burning in my chest. My flashlight shook in my hand as I sprinted toward the road. No signal, no cars, just darkness. I kept running downhill until I finally saw lights, a small gas station. I collapsed inside, gasping. The clerk stared at me. "You okay, son?" "No, I need help. She's crazy. She cut herself. She wanted me to carve my initials into her leg." He handed me the phone. I called 911. The cops came, drove me back up. Her car was gone. No trace of her, no blood, nothing. Back home, I blocked her, deleted the app, changed my number. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear that laugh, and I think about how easily things could have gone worse.
Story 3. My name is Rema, and I'm from Kolkata, India. This story isn't about me. It's about something that happened to my closest friend back in high school. For privacy, I'll call her Priya. Priya was the kind of girl everyone liked. Soft-spoken, kind, almost too gentle for the world. She wasn't the type who made enemies or caused drama, but for some reason, life was always rough on her. Bad luck, bad relationships, bad timing, it all followed her like a shadow. Everything started when we were in the 11th grade. She had just gone through a messy breakup with her third boyfriend. At first, it seemed like normal heartbreak. She cried, she got quiet, she struggled. But then something shifted. One day she came to school looking terrified. Her eyes were red, she kept staring at the corners of the classroom like she expected something to jump out. When I finally got her alone, she whispered, "Rema, I'm seeing things, and I'm hearing things too." Naturally, I thought it was just stress, depression, maybe even lack of sleep. But the way she described everything, it didn't feel like hallucinations. She told me that when she studied at night, a deep voice whispered her name from right behind her ear. She said it was so close she could feel the breath, but when she turned around, no one was there. Sometimes she heard footsteps circling her room at 2 or 3 a.m. Sometimes her books fell off the shelf without reason. Sometimes she felt something cold brush against her neck or grip her wrist.
And then she told me the part that scared her and me the most. She said she kept seeing a shadowy figure in her room, always in the same spot, the far corner, the darkest part of the room. The figure looked like a girl sitting on the floor with her head buried in her arms, as if she were crying. When she turned on the lights, nothing was there. But the moment she switched the lights off, the figure returned. At first, I tried to comfort her. I told her it was all in her head. Breakups can do strange things, right? But every day she looked worse, tired, weak, nervous, like she wasn't sleeping at all. Then something happened that made me realize this wasn't normal. One morning at school, I noticed her big toe was wrapped in a thick bandage. When I asked what happened, she didn't laugh it off. She didn't make a joke. She just whispered, "I think something made me do it." She told me that the night before, while she was studying, an overwhelming urge flooded her body, an urge to rip off her own toenail. She said she tried to resist, she tried to fight it, but it felt like something had taken control of her hand. She said she was fully aware of the pain, fully aware of her body moving against her will, but she couldn't stop. Hearing that made my stomach drop. This wasn't heartbreak, this wasn't stress. Something was wrong. Over the next week, things only got worse for her. She started smelling strange scents, rotting flowers, burnt incense at random times. She felt watched. She stopped sleeping. Then one afternoon, she broke down completely and told me what she believed was happening. She said someone in her own family, someone related by blood, had done black magic on her. Not the dramatic kind shown in movies, but the old traditional kind, filled with rituals meant to break a person from the inside out. She said the voice, the shadow, the loss of control, all of it felt like something was trying to drain her life away. I didn't believe in that stuff then. I grew up thinking black magic was just superstition. But looking at her pale face, her shaking hands, her hopelessness, I couldn't deny that something was tormenting her. Eventually, she told everything to her mother, and her mother took her to a tantric, a spiritual practitioner who worked with mantras, rituals, and protection rites. The tantric listened quietly, performed a ritual right there in their home, and then told Priya something that still makes me shiver. He said the energy attached to her was not random. It had been sent, intentionally, by someone of her own bloodline. The ritual took hours, but after it was done, things changed. Priya slept normally. The whispers stopped. The shadow disappeared. The pressure in her chest lifted like something heavy finally let go. Slowly, she got better. Years passed. We grew distant during college. We barely talk now. But sometimes I see her Instagram posts, smiling, traveling, living a peaceful life. And every time I do, I feel relieved. Because I still remember the girl who used to stare into the corner of her room at night. The girl who heard her name whispered in the dark. The girl who nearly tore off her own toenail because something else wanted her to. And I'm thankful she escaped whatever that thing was.
Story 4. I never thought I'd be moving back into my mom's house at 34, but life doesn't care about your pride. It was right after I got fired from my warehouse job in Tucson. Some new manager decided to clean house and half the crew got the boot. I had no savings, my rent was overdue, and my fridge had nothing but ketchup packets and old bread. My mom lived alone in an old 2-story house in Mesa, the one my stepdad built before he died from a sudden heart attack 8 years ago. She was thrilled when I called. "Oh, Lucas, come home. I've missed you," she said, voice shaky with excitement. Honestly, I felt relieved, like I was a kid again, and she'd turned on the porch light for me. When I pulled up with my rusty car and a few sad boxes, she hugged me tight. The first couple of weeks were peaceful. I fixed things around the house, helped with groceries, and spent nights watching old sitcoms with her. She made chicken stew the way she used to when I was little, and for a while, it felt like maybe everything would be okay. But then, the strange thing started. The crying. It began with the crying late at night. I'd be in my old room scrolling through job listings, and suddenly I'd hear soft, muffled sobs coming from downstairs, my mom's bedroom. At first, I thought she was lonely or maybe missing my stepdad, so one night around midnight, I knocked gently on her door. "Mom, you okay?" Instant silence. Then she opened the door, face calm, hair messy like she'd just woken up. "What are you talking about, Lucas? I wasn't crying." No tears, no redness, nothing. But it kept happening, louder, each time, like someone was grieving deeply. When I confronted her again, she just shook her head, confused. "Maybe it was the neighbors, dear, or the TV." But it wasn't. The sabotage. One morning, I pulled my only decent shirt out of the dryer, burned straight across the collar. Black marks like someone held an iron on it for minutes. I stormed into the living room. "Mom, what happened to my shirt?" She looked up, shocked. "I ironed it yesterday. It wasn't burned." "Mom, look at it. It's ruined." She stammered, voice trembling. "Maybe the iron is broken." But then it happened again. My jeans came out of the wash with a perfect hole in the pocket, like scissors had sliced it clean. I snapped. "Mom, if you want me gone, just say it." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Lucas, I love having you here. Please stop accusing me." I felt guilty for a second, but only for a second. The water incidents were the final straw. I'd be in the shower, finally relaxing after another failed interview, when suddenly, nothing. The water would cut off completely. I'd wrap myself in a towel, dripping across the hall to the basement valve. Turned off. Every time. "Mom, are you messing with the water?" She poked her head out of the kitchen, startled. "Why would I do that? Maybe the city's repairing something." But it kept happening. 3 times in 1 week. Always when I was showering. My patience snapped. "You're doing this on purpose." Her eyes filled with fear. "Lucas, no, please talk to me." But I was done talking. The breaking point. One afternoon after another rejection call, I went to shower. Halfway through, water gone again. Soap burning my eyes. I stormed downstairs, furious, still wet. My mom stood in the living room, ironing a pillowcase. "You did it again!" I shouted. She jerked, the iron clattering to the floor. "Lucas, calm down. No more lies. You turned the valve off." Her voice shook. "Maybe it's the city. Let me check." I stepped toward her, angry, exhausted, frustrated. She backed up, tripped over the coffee table, and fell hard, gasping as she hit her side. My anger vanished instantly. Mom, I'm sorry." But she was already dialing 911 with shaking hands. "My son, please hurry." Police arrived fast. Neighbors stared. They cuffed me right there in the driveway. "Why'd you attack her?" Detective asked. I told him everything. The crying, the burned clothes, the water turning off. He listened silently. Then another officer entered the room. "Your mother has early-stage dementia," she said softly. "Did you know that?" Everything stopped. She explained. "The crying? From an old drama show she watches and forgets she turned on. The burned shirt? She left the iron on by accident. The water shut off? The city was doing maintenance. She forgot to tell me." Her memory was slipping. Badly. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't gaslighting. It was her mind fading. And I hadn't seen it. That was 6 months ago. I'm working a small job now, attending court-ordered anger management. My mom lives with her sister. I haven't seen her since. I leave voicemails she probably won't remember hearing. "Mom, I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me." Sometimes I drive by the old house. There's a sale for sign out front. And I realize the scariest part of this whole story isn't the crying at night, or the burned clothes, or the water turning off in the dark. It's that I didn't recognize my own mother slipping away.
Story 5. My name is Ethan, and this is a story my uncle told me years ago. One he still refuses to discuss unless he's had a drink in his hand and all the lights in the house turned on. He grew up in a rural province far from the city, an old farming town called Ravenwood, surrounded by dense forests, narrow dirt roads, and houses built so far apart that at night you could scream and no one would hear you. Back then, when he was around 14, he and his friends had a small ritual. On weekends, they would walk to a rundown little movie shack everyone simply called the Real House. It wasn't a real cinema, just a big wooden room with mismatched chairs and a dusty projector. But for $1, you could watch anything. Action flicks, cheesy horror films, whatever tapes the owner managed to get his hands on. For kids living in a quiet farming village, it was paradise. The Real House was about a 20-minute walk from their neighborhood, and the path to it cut through a long, lonely stretch of road lined with dying streetlights. Half of them didn't work. The other half flickered like they were struggling to stay alive. My uncle says the nights in Ravenwood were darker than anything he's experienced since, the kind of dark that swallows your footsteps. One night, after a marathon of old kung fu movies, he and his 2 friends headed home. They joked, shoved each other, tried to scare one another with ghost stories the adults liked to whisper when they thought the kids weren't listening. But eventually, the boys split off in different directions, each heading toward their own family farmland. My uncle, Lucas, was the last one walking. The farther he got from the village center, the quieter the world became. No dogs, no wind, just the crunch of gravel under his slippers and the faint hum of crickets somewhere far off. Then he noticed something strange. Up ahead, beneath one of the few working streetlights, stood an old man. The man was turned away from him, hunched over slightly, his clothing almost the same color as the dirt road. At first, Lucas wasn't scared. Ravenwood was full of elderly farmers who wandered at odd hours. But something felt wrong. The old man stood too still, like a statue. And the moment Lucas slowed down to look at him, the wind seemed to die entirely. Still, Lucas forced himself to approach. He was a polite kid, raised to help elders, even when he didn't want to. "Sir, it's late. Are you okay? Do you need help getting home?" The old man didn't move. Not a twitch, not a breath, just stillness. A pressure started building in Lucas's chest. His mother always told him never to stop for strangers after dark. "There are things in the countryside that pretend to be people," she used to warn him. "Things that wait for children who walk alone." Trying not to sound scared, Lucas waved awkwardly and began walking again. He moved fast. After a minute or two, he felt calmer until he heard it. Footsteps behind him. Slow, dragging, uneven. He turned around instinctively, heart hammering, but when he looked, the old man had his back to him, facing the opposite direction, as if he'd suddenly decided to walk away. But the footsteps? They had definitely been behind him. Lucas swallowed hard and started walking faster. The dragging footsteps sped up. He walked even faster. They matched him, pace for pace. Finally, terror exploded inside him, and he broke into a full sprint, tearing down the road toward his house. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but adrenaline pushed him harder than he had ever run before. Halfway there, he risked one glance back, and that's when he saw it. The old man wasn't standing anymore. He was crawling, on all fours. But wrong. his body twisted backward, his stomach facing up, limbs bending in ways no human limb should. And his head hung upside down beneath him, staring directly at Lucas with pale, dead eyes. A smile, wide and impossible, stretched across his face. Lucas screamed and sprinted harder, practically flying across the dirt road. He reached his house, slammed the front door open, nearly knocking it off its hinges, and locked it behind him. He pressed his back against the wood, shaking uncontrollably. A second later, thud! Something heavy hit the other side of the door. He didn't look. He didn't breathe. He didn't dare move until the sound faded and the night outside grew silent again. When he told his mother, she didn't question him. She didn't laugh. She simply closed every window, lit a candle, and whispered, "You never stop for anyone on Ravenwood Road after dark anymore." My uncle still avoids that road today, even in broad daylight, because some things, once you see them, never really let you go. If you made it to the end, congratulations. Most people don't. Some say that when you listen to stories like these, you open a door, not a physical one, something deeper. And sometimes things slip through. So if you hear a knock tonight, don't answer. I upload new real nightmares every week, so if you want more, hit subscribe, but only if you're brave enough. And remember, the next story might be about someone just like you.